Well, I think on the recruiting front, I guess Marty, you can. Well, I guess I guess the thing I was going to point out was they did get another kid, one more kid for the 22 class, Vega. I don't know, say his last name, Ione, out of Graham, Washington. 6'4", 320-pound inside offensive lineman. Managed to get him away from UW, which to me is quite the haul. And as Marty was alluding to, kid that they got on campus, once they got him on campus, showed him what State College, what Penn State's all about, that whole family community aspect of things. Obviously, it must have clicked enough of him to want to come from the Pacific Northwest all the way to here. I was thinking to myself in the back of my head the last time we got a kid out of Washington State, and Mac Morrison, who played linebacker in the late 90s, is the only name that comes to mind. So, again, great job by Franklin and staff for landing that kid.
Yeah, I think Ione is a great example of why it's important to get these kids on campus for Penn State. He was committed to Washington for a long time, decommitted with the coaching staff change, and when Washington kept the offensive line coach, all signs pointed to him still signing with the Huskies. But he officially visited Penn State last week, and that visit swung it in favor of the Nittany Lions. You look at this class, there's a lot of players to like. We've touched on Dennis Sutton, 5-star defensive end, and especially Manny Diaz's defense, the way he likes to attack off the edge. I expect Dennis Sutton to make an immediate impact. I would also argue that was the biggest recruiting win of the James Franklin era, to beat out Georgia and Alabama, especially when during the summer, you see this a lot of recruitment. The team that gets the last visit wins. Penn State got the first visit. He visited Bama and Georgia after visiting Penn State, and the Nittany Lions still were able to win that recruitment. Aller, obviously, I'm not going to touch on him much more because there's not much more to be said. But I think he was probably Dennis Sutton was the biggest recruiting win of the Franklin era. I think Drew Aller was the most important win. Tim, I know you and I have said this on the show during the season. For the longest time, Clemson was always Clemson, and then Deshaun Watson came along. This is not to say Drew Aller is going to be Deshaun Watson, but he has the potential and the talent to be Penn State's Deshaun Watson. Other guys in the class who I feel like really don't get enough attention. One is Zane Durant, a 4-star defense tackle out of Florida. The kid plays 6A football in the state of Florida. There's not much high school football in the country. It's better than that. And he had something like 35 tackles for a loss and 20 sacks last year. For Penn State fans, the comparison I always make for him is Kevin Givens, just a little bit bigger and a little more twitchy on the inside. I think Durant is a guy who's going to be a great player for the Nittany Lions. Amari Evans is a player I really like a lot also. Elite speed at the receiver position. He has work to do as a route runner and as a receiver, but man, he's going to run by a lot of defenders. He's going to be a threat in the return game. And, it wouldn't be – you can't talk Penn State football right now without addressing offensive line. And on top of Ione, Drew Shelton, an in-state offensive tackle, top 150 or so kid, really good player. I don't think he plays as a true freshman. Very rarely do offensive lineman plays as a true freshman, but I think he can make an impact very early in his career. And also J.B. Nelson, the number 1 ranked JUCO offensive lineman in the country, who made a lot of strides this past season at Lackawanna Community College in Scranton. He's also an in-state kid who's originally from Pittsburgh before going to Scranton for community college. I think you could see him contributing the offensive line this year. So there's just so much talent on this roster, or in this recruiting class, excuse me. Abdul Carter is another guy who I think could be an absolute freak for that Nittany Lion defense, who doesn't get talked about very often. I think he can be an absolute game record defensive end in a couple of years. So yeah, you go up and down this class, there's so much talent. And it's one of those where, yes, there are a lot of people, myself included, who have really, in the last 2 years had question marks about this coaching staff and some of their game day decisions. But you put this kind of talent on your roster, that can really help cover up for any maybe poor in-game decisions, things of that nature. Because ultimately talent wins. And, James Franklin has proven that when he's given a talented roster, he can win a heck of a lot of football games. So I do think that this is a kind of class that, and this is something we'll get into later in the offseason, I'm sure. You look at the 2023 class and the start they're off to, one of the biggest issues with Penn State under James Franklin with recruiting is they've always recruited well. They've never stacked the elite recruiting classes like this. Well, the 2022 class is most certainly elite, and the 2023 class is off to an elite kind of start. So you could see them really starting to turn that corner recruiting wise. And, this may sound crazy, but to constantly rank in the top 12 to 15 recruiting classes, as opposed to consistently ranking that top 5 to 10, is actually a bigger difference than I think a lot of people realize. So if Penn State can turn that corner to consistently sign top 5 to 10 classes, that will make a big difference. And that will close that talent camp with Ohio State a good bit. So yeah, there's a lot of players in this class to be excited about. One thing I will say, if you want to know more about any of these guys, hop over Black Shoe Diaries. We've been, over the course of the last few weeks, Clay Sauertig and Patrick Corbler and I, we really kind of tackled the recruiting news over there. And we've been doing our breakdowns of each player in the class, what we like about the players, maybe any concerns, when we think they can make an impact on the field. So go over there and check it out. We have it for every player in this class.
As someone who played high school sports at a quad A school in Pennsylvania, the idea that there's a 6A is just mind blowing. But it speaks to just how many high schools or athletic programs there are in the state of Florida, and just how much talent there is in that state overall. But just to tack on to your Florida, in addition to Zane Durant, another Florida kid that my interest is piqued by is Katron Allen from IMG Academy, who also dubbed Fat Man by his teammates now because he's a bigger guy, but the guy can move for his size, and he's a powerful bowling ball kind of running back. So we'll see. I know I talked about how the running back room is ripe for Singleton to, grab it by the horns and become the starter. Don't count out Katron Allen for him to carve out a role for himself in some short yardage situations. They just need to, pick up a yard or two, or just want to throw another wrecking ball of a guy out there at running back. He could be an option. So just figure out how to add that on.
I mean, I know for a lot of reasons this is a bit of a lazy comparison, but I definitely think there could be a lot of similarities to freshman Katron Allen and freshman Noah Kane. Allen may not be quite as explosive as Kane was, but both come from IMG. Both have more of that bigger build and can just barrel a guy over and go get you that yard 2-3 when needed for the first down. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all either to see Katron Allen make an impact. And one other guy, like I said, you could talk about this class all day, but another guy sticking with the state of Florida, who I think we could potentially see on the field next year is Cam Miller. 4-star cornerback, long, lanky kid, really shined in the offseason, the All-Star games, really shined in the camp circuit last summer. One of those kids that I'm surprised got out of the state of Florida, quite honestly, with his talent. Penn State's deep at cornerback, but there's going to be some playing time available with guys like Tyler Castro-Fields moving on, and it wouldn't stun me to see Miller on the field early in his career either, because the kid's got the length that this coaching staff likes at cornerback and's got some plus athleticism to go with it.